Hi guys.
We're here for the insurance presentation, so we're just going to wait a few minutes or seconds and start right at 5 o'clock. Presentation, so we're just going to wait a few minutes or seconds and start right at 5 o'clock. Presentation, so we're just going to wait a few minutes. So welcome. It's 5 o'clock here in California time, a little later across the country, but Sarah and I are here representing Legis Equine, and we've been asked to talk a little bit to all of you about horse insurance and some of the details of it and why you should even care. So let me start by saying thanks for joining us. And Sarah and I are each going to briefly share a personal story of how insurance really came into play for us. For me, I was on vacation in kind of a remote area with not very good cell phone reception when I got the phone call that my jumper needed to get to the clinic, that he was looking extremely colicky, very fast, and the vet said, "Don't mess around, transport him now." And I have to tell you, throughout the whole thing, knowing that the horse was insured and the way everybody stepped in and helped out, and the clinic got onto the surgery and the horse recovered great, and having the insurance to help with the $15,000 worth of expenses with that colic surgery was really nice, and it made insurance very, very valuable to me. Sarah can share with you a little bit more of a heartbreaking story, but the insurance definitely really helped her.
Yeah, I was on course, on cross country, and I had a horse die under me while I was riding. And I have to say, knowing that the insurance was there so that I had a financial piece to get started on the next young one was really helped. The concept of insurance is being made whole again, and it definitely made a really bad situation a little better, knowing that I could go find that next horse to continue my journey forward in my riding.
And I think Sarah's representative of a lot of horse owners around the country, in that, while many of us are fortunate enough to be able to have a horse and do some competing, just going out and replacing a horse is a huge financial challenge for many people. And having the insurance to help with replacing a horse, God forbid if you lose one, or you have a very serious medical issue like I had with my horse's colic. Both of those scenarios without insurance could have really impacted each of us financially, whether in our regular lives or our ability to continue in the sport. So for those two basic reasons, insurance can be really, really valuable. And before we dive in, we want to remind you that there's a little live chat button on your screen, hopefully that you can see. And please, throughout this next 30 or 45 minutes, type in questions. We really like to have a dialogue, and we love answering questions, and we love working with fellow horse people and sharing our passion for horses, as well as the knowledge we've gained with being involved with LegisEquine.com, our insurance agency, and all of us here at Legis really live our motto of horsemen insuring horsemen.
So I'm going to bring our slideshow up now.
And you can tell we're horse people with dogs barking in the background. We're just very real. So you get a quick picture. You can see that I ride primarily in the jumper ring. Sarah is an eventer. This was a young horse, the one she was able to use insurance to replace after the previous horse died. And you went up through prelim, advanced?
Two-star level.
Two-star level. So
pretty exciting.
And now she has a young thoroughbred mare she's bringing along, and we really enjoy being able to be involved in the sport and interact with all of you out there.
So we're going to go forward. We wanted to talk to you about the different types of horse insurance that are available. We're kind of just going to go through them so you guys get a good appreciation for them, and you know what you're looking for and what you're asking for if this is something that you want to do. There's horse insurance, which includes mortality or replacement insurance if your horse does die, major medical assistance, surgical insurance, and loss of use or permanent disability coverage.
And we'll go into each of those in a few minutes and give you a little more explanation. We wanted to give you just a little bit of highlights of some key insurance that's horse related that we felt you should be aware of or understand. And we really work hard to speak to you in plain English and not use what we call insurance ease.
On the other side of things, for both the professional and the non-professional, there's liability insurance, and that's what protects you if your horse hurts someone or something, so causes bodily injury or property damage are the insurance terms for that.
Yeah, so let's dive into a little bit of details about horse insurance, and our understanding is that that's kind of the focus that some of you are really looking for, and we'll give it our best shot to talk a little bit about it.
So mortality insurance is what protects the insured for the loss of the horse by death or humane destruction as a result of accident, injury, illness, or disease. That's the definition in the insurance policy. So we wanted to include that in insurance speak so you could see what the actual words are. Basically, it's replacement cost for the horse. Replacing the horse for the value that you decide before it gets hurt. So the value that's placed on the insurance policy.
And when you have a horse that's insured over time, initially you insure it for the value you bought it for. So let's say you bought a horse for $20,000. That is the amount you can insure it for. You can't insure it for more than that, because
even if it's a great deal?
Even if it's a great deal, you do need to insure it for what you actually paid. However, as you put money into the horse, in the form of training, in the form of competitions, as the horse develops a win record, you can periodically increase the horse's value. There's a simple form called a justification of value, and you just need to substantiate why you want to increase the horse's value. Now, increasing its value a month after you bought it isn't going to happen, and generally increasing it from, say, that base of $20,000 to $100,000, you'd better have some real serious win records on it to get that big of a jump in value. But periodically increasing it, say to $30,000, $40,000 after a year, is not unreasonable. So you start with your purchase price, and then over time you do have the ability to increase the horse's value.
And the other side of it is, let's say you buy a horse that was, a going horse, and over time it gets a little bit older, it's doing less, it's more recreational, it's less of a performance horse. You can decrease its value as it depreciates, if you will, because you need to get less money back for it, and you're still able to get the additional coverages such as major medical or surgical coverage.
And one of the things a lot of people will say to us is, I'm not that worried about my horse dying. I have a 6-year-old horse. I understand the likelihood of that isn't super high. I'm willing to take that risk. But I really do want insurance to help me out if there's veterinary expenses for injuries or illnesses. And while that makes complete sense, the way horse insurance works, unlike for people, is you do have to have a mortality policy. That is the actual base policy. And then all of the medical and surgical type things are what are technically called endorsements, or in plain old English, add-ons. So even though the person buying insurance may primarily want the medical and the surgical help for that colic or that injury or lameness, you do have to have a mortality policy first. So let's talk a little bit about some of the technicalities of the additional stuff.
Oh, yeah. Oops. Sorry, guys. So there's, like we said, there's different types of additional coverages. The main coverage that people are looking for, that's most like human health insurance, is called major medical coverage. What it does is it covers non-routine care to the horse. So teeth floating, shots, vaccinations, those are never going to be covered. What people sometimes don't know is other things that are considered routine would be joint injections on the horse throughout the year. That's considered maintenance. It's not considered treatment.
If the vet diagnoses the horses as having a medical or lameness condition, then and recommends a joint treatment, that may then be covered. But then if it's to help the horse to do it regularly, that will probably not be covered.
We have a question from Melinda that I wanted to answer based on the previous slide. So yes, mortality insurance in horse insurance is always the part you have to purchase first. Any of these endorsements or additional coverages only can be put on top of an existing mortality policy.
Yeah, this isn't coming just from Legis. This isn't our internal procedure. All of the insurance carriers in the United States require that you have a mortality policy, and then you add on the extra things that meet your needs. So then medical assistance is kind of a subset of major medical. It gives you some help with some soundness things, but it's just not as robust. So maybe somebody who's a little bit price sensitive, managing their budget. Sarah, you can speak to some more nuances of it.
Sure, it's there a little bit more. The insurance company is looking for a way to still provide affordable coverage for the catastrophic things, for a colic surgery, for the horse getting sick. What you find the coverage in more limited in medical assistance is when it's lameness related. You end up with more sub-limits or less coverage for lameness, both diagnostics and treatment in the medical assistance, but it tends to be less expensive and available for a broader range of horse values.
So again, if your horse gets a major injury, like let's say it, runs through a fence and gets really cut up, the medical assistance would help you. If you've got some kind of sophisticated lameness issues and you want financial help with that, then you want the more robust major medical. But what is nice is that there's a variety of these add-ons that can address your particular needs, your particular budget. And because we're all horse people here, we really talk with you and we try to understand what your needs are, what you're doing with your horse, what some of your budget situations are, so that we can help you pick what's going to help meet your budget and as well meet your needs, so that you're a happy insurance client and you understand what you're buying and what you can expect from it.
Mm-hmm. And then surgical coverage would be the least expensive of the add-ons, and it would only come into effect if the horse ends up under general anesthesia. So a big colic surgery, something that they were to do, standing, if they're removing like a melanoma or something, wouldn't be covered. It would require general anesthesia. And all of these coverages come in varying limits from $5,000 to $15,000 per year. So there's a lot of options out there.
Right, and a limit, just think of that as that's how much money is in the bucket for you to get reimbursed from within a year. And then I think most everybody has at least heard of loss of use insurance. We really like to use the word permanent disability. Even though the insurance carriers also use loss of use, it's really misleading. People think, oh my gosh, my horse got hurt and he's not going to be able to go back to being a 2 or 3 star horse. Hurrah, the insurance carrier is going to pay out loss of use for me. And that's really not the case. We actually try to talk our clients out of it, and if they still say yes, we try to talk them out of it one more time. Here's the realities. In order to have this coverage, first off, you have to start with a lot of information and reporting about the horse. Oftentimes it's x-rays and an exam just to start with. Then if the horse has, generally it's an injury that keeps it from competing, and maybe it won't go back to a high level of competition. First, you have to do all of the treatments that the veterinarian, and generally when the insurance gets involved, so they may also have their own veterinarian or person within their company interfacing with your vet saying, well, you need to do this, you need to do that. You have to do all of the treatments first, and as many of us know, when you're dealing with a soft tissue injury, it can be a couple months to a year plus. and the whole time you're paying the bills, then for the permanent disability to pay out, the veterinarian has to say that the horse can't do any job. Even if the horse can return to eventing and do beginner novice and trot over some telephone poles on the ground, that is considered useful. Then if you actually do get to the case that the horse can really only stand in a pasture and be a pet, you will only get a percentage of the horse's value, generally 50 to 60% of its value, and some of the insurance carriers have the option to also take the horse. So it's a very difficult coverage. It's very complicated, and in order to get a payout on it, it really has to truly be an injury or a situation where the horse is going to do nothing but be a pet or be a lawn ornament. So those are the reasons that we really work hard to explain the coverage and the realities of it to the clients. So now we'll tell you a little bit more about horse insurance and some of the things Sarah was referencing, like limits and deductibles and co-payments.
Right. So there's many carriers out there. One of the nice things about Legis is we represent multiple carriers, and so we have the ability to find the policy that best suits your needs. But some of the ways that the insurance policies or that the endorsements differ is through deductibles, which is the amount that you need to pay first before the policy will trigger. Co-payments, which is the percentage of the final bill that you're responsible for. Sublimits, which is the most that the policy will pay for that specific thing, like Shockwave has a sublimit, IRAP has a sublimit, bone scans can have sublimits. Things that become expensive that the insurance company just wants to limit how much they're going to pay out.
Like as an example, you might have that major medical policy and you might have chosen a $10,000 limit. So the insurance carrier will pay out up to $10,000 on that policy. However, in the finer print, and this is where we really work hard to have clients understand up front before they buy the policy, there may be a sublimit. So let's say Shockwave, and let's say that a particular policy says it will only pay up to $1,500 toward Shockwave. So even though you have $10,000 for your major medical, only $1,500 of that, hypothetically, can be used for Shockwave. So understanding some of those nuances is very important, and horse insurance has gotten much more complex, especially over the last 10 or 15 years. And so it is important to take that few minutes, work with a horse specialist in the insurance who really understands it and can explain it to you. And if they can't explain it to you in plain, simple English, find someone who can.
The last piece is exclusions, which are parts of the are injuries or things that could happen to the horse that would not be paid out. One that we see sometimes is like a bone chip exclusion if we don't have an x-ray of the joint prior or within 6 months' time. So there's just, like Marnie said, nuances to the policy that you really want to know before you pick the one you're purchasing.
And a lot of people will ask about colic as an exclusion, because if your horse has had colic, the impression is you will never get colic coverage on the horse again. That is not necessarily true. It will depend on how severe the colic was, if there was any resection within the gut, and how long the horse has been colic free. So just because your horse has had colic, do not automatically assume that you can't get insurance on it and for colic coverage, actually. So again, that's important to have some discussions and disclose as much information as you can to us. That helps us help you. And we do advocate for our clients.
Right, we work and we look at the policies. They're all written on an annual basis, so every year insurance policies require new paperwork, just getting an update on the horse's health history. If your horse has had something like colic in its health history, one of the things that we do at Legis is we will ask for an update, see how he's done, or she. And what it does is it allows us to go back to the insurance carrier and say, this horse has been symptom free for this amount of time, and often remove exclusions if they were on there for a period of time. So we work hard to make sure that your policy is going to protect you and your horse as much as it can.
And sometimes a horse might have had a suspensory injury, and when we get the new policy paperwork, we'll notice that the entire left front leg is excluded. And that's when we pick up the phone and talk to the carrier and say, the whole leg? Really? You know, we get that you want to maybe exclude the area where the injury was for at least, you know, a sufficient amount of time, but don't exclude the entire leg. And yes, it takes that little bit of extra time, but that's what we pay attention to are those details, and we try to help you out and get you the most fair coverage we possibly can. So in addition to specific horse insurance, there's other insurance aspects that we really feel strongly you should at least be aware of. Before we jump into these, if there's any questions specifically on some of those horse coverages and some of those add-ons, feel free to jump in and dash off a quick question to us. And even if you think of one in a few minutes, please don't hesitate. We can always circle back and touch on different topics. But in addition to insuring your horse, probably most of us have a house, have a car, have a little bit of savings, those sorts of things, assets, retirement accounts. And sadly, we live in a more litigious society. There's people looking to blame, and it's just the way it is. When an incident happens, people look to get some protection and get some help. And we want to make all of you aware of some of the ways that you can protect yourself in a very cost-effective manner. If you own a horse, most people don't really think about it, but if your horse gets loose and runs around, and goodness knows all of us have had a horse get loose at one time or another, but if that horse kicks out and damages the door of a car, or maybe he's running down the barn aisle and somebody jumps out of his way and they fall down and get hurt while getting out of the horse's way, or God forbid the horse actually runs them down, you can suddenly be looking at a pretty expensive situation. And a lot of people say, I have homeowners insurance, it will protect me. We say, that's great. If you have homeowners insurance, go look your agent in the eye and ask your agent that if your horse causes a serious problem, the little problems aren't an issue, it's the big ones, will you have coverage? When your insurance agent for your homeowner says yes, smile sweetly and say, great, show me in my policy where it says horses will be included. Just because the policy says nothing, do not go to bed on that. Again, the little issues, the insurance carrier is going to step up and help you. The big issues, they start to look for the reasons not to cover you. Unlike dogs and cats, which are treated as personal pets and have some coverage under a homeowner's policy, horses are considered agricultural. And many times, homeowner policies exclude, do not cover, agricultural type endeavors. So we are huge advocates of what's known as a personal horse owner liability policy. For less than $500 and as low as $250, you can buy yourself $1 million of liability coverage for a year that will give you protection if somebody gets hurt or something gets damaged as a result of your horse. You could be riding your horse, and we've all had our horses kick out or something. It's really, really valuable.
The most important part is, you know, these policies protect you even if you didn't do anything wrong. So it's the legal defense. It's the lawyer letter that you're going to have to hire someone to write. that's automatically included in this policy. And, we can't say enough how expensive even lawsuits that shouldn't be lawsuits can get very, very quickly.
I don't think there's much worse than opening your mail and there's a letter from gotcha, slimy, and con man lawyers. And no offense to any of you who are lawyers out there. I'm sure there's many ethical ones. But sadly, we all know that in every industry there's some less than desirable ones. And they make some assertion that you and your horse caused a problem. It might have been a month ago at a horse show and you were riding by when grandma was there with her walker and her family and she just tripped and fell and broke her hip. All of a sudden they could decide that your horse going by helped trip grandma. And if you think that's an exaggeration, trust me, it's not. We have seen some just bizarre, ludicrous things. We had a client of ours, although she's a professional horseman, it's the same sort of thing. 3 months after a horse show, she got a letter accusing her of causing an elderly woman to break her hip. And she had seen the woman fall and break her hip, but she was nowhere near involved or the cause of it. And unfortunately, at the time, when that happened, she wasn't a client of ours, and she really had a nightmare situation and had to pay for a lawyer out of her own pocket. So like Sarah said, when you have liability coverage, you have something that's called legal defense. What that means is the insurance carrier provides an attorney, and usually very good attorney, to defend you and to address all that, and that doesn't cost you a dime.
The other types of policies out there are probably ones you think of a little more, for the equine professional out there, for a trainer who has a business. It can be on his own property or she can be working out of another facility. And again, it provides coverage if a student gets hurt, if a horse gets hurt, if grandma gets hurt. Grandma gets hurt a lot.
Yeah, grandma gets hurt a lot
in our office.
No offense to grandmas out there. We actually love them. It's very similar to the personal horse owner policy, but more robust. Like Sarah said, protects the trainer of students. If horses that are under their care, custody, or control get loose, get out of a stall, or if a staff member of a trainer perhaps forgets to latch a stall securely, and it's a horse who's pretty nimble and agile, and he finishes opening the door up and then goes on a romp and, potentially causes some problems. And most trainers are required to carry liability insurance, especially when they work out of property that is not theirs. So we're very good at working with trainers, understanding what they do, and making sure they're properly covered, so that they're not paying for things they're not doing, but that they are represented for the things they are doing.
And then the last note on there is farm and ranch coverage, and that's what blends both the liability with your stuff. We can cover saddles, we can cover buildings, we can cover horse show setups, show jumps, really everything that goes into...
Your clippers, those aren't cheap.
Those aren't cheap. Everything that goes into running a business. And then the really unique part about a farm and ranch policy, because it's agricultural, they expect a lot of these people to live where they work. So it also allows coverage for your homeowner's policy to be included with it. It can provide coverage for your truck and trailer, as well as the Toyota that you take to the market. It really becomes very robust.
And it is not limited to people who are operating in the horse industry on a professional or commercial basis. It can be the horse owner who has 2 acres and a nice house and a little barn. You too can have farm and ranch coverage, and it's such that it provides very strong homeowners type coverage, but it also meets your agricultural needs. People who have property with a horse on it and cover it under just a horse or a homeowner's policy are at risk of having their equine part of their activities maybe not have coverage, and especially on the liability side. So we're not trying to scare you. We're not trying to be alarmist, but we really feel that forewarned is forearmed. And that's what we have for you guys tonight. Like we said, we kind of wanted to keep it short and sweet. We wanted to get to the point. We hope it's been interesting. Before we all sign off, if there's anybody out there who's got a last question or a comment, is there some other piece of information you'd like? Let us know if this was helpful. But we've appreciated everyone's time and interest, and we just hope you're out there having fun with horses, being safe, and know that there's an insurance component that can act as a good adjunct to your horse activities.
Thank you guys for your time today.
Have fun riding.
Bye-bye.